Our next inductee, we're going to share the microphone here, so to speak. Not only just a football announcer, but just a great announcer and a great person. 31 seasons doing Clarion football play-by-play. 37 years in broadcasting. 2023 PSAC Heaslip Award winner, and that's recognized as the top media professional in the state. Mike just received that award, long overdue. 2 degrees from Clarion, and of course, not only did he have an immense contribution to Clarion, but to the region, to this area as a high school broadcaster as well. I present to you for induction, Mike Kalinowski.
I'm not used to being on this side.
I know you just got interviewed recently, I think, or did a lot of interviews on EYT, so this is not unusual for you in this setup here. Yes. You're a native of Cochranton, and we talked a little bit about especially coming here. Back then, it was Dr. Henry Fugue, for those of you that might remember back that far, and his the communications program he was so proud of back then. But you were at Cochranton and you just are deciding to come to Clarion. Why?
It was the best. When I was looking, I had a chance to go to Kent State, also Indiana, IUP, and Clarion. Those were my choices. And having had family go here, my Aunt Louise graduated from here in '79. Her sisters went here, so I had familiarity. And looking at all of the different choices, Clarion was on top of the world when it came to communication. And if you wanted to be a broadcaster, this is where you wanted to come. And that made my decision.
Of course, you come to Clarion, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but why don't you tell the folks about your first steps in the Clarion football press box?
So I'm a freshman. It's 1987. And I'm going up to meet guys that were going to help me become a broadcaster. They were 2 really great guys, Eric Ritchie and Don Sloan. And I was going to help them out on the broadcast. And they said, just come up to the press box a little bit before the game, and we'll get you all set up. So having never been to the stadium before, back years ago, the president had their side, and then there was the broadcasting side, or the media side. Well, I had no clue, so I come up the steps on the wrong side. I go walk through the president's booth and come in, and Rich looks at me and goes, who do you think you are? And I said, oh, no, I'm just coming up to do the game. He says, that's the president's side, and don't you ever come up on that side again. And he said, I don't ever want to see that if you want to come up here anymore. And he yelled and yelled, and I'm sitting there as a freshman thinking to myself, what did I just get myself into? And but that was funny. I mean, looking back, and I was scared. You had me scared.
Yeah, I did have you scared. But I was scared too, because the president at the time told me, if anybody comes through that press box, you're fired. I thought, oh boy.
Yeah, that was Tom Bond back then, yeah.
Yeah. But so you get your start both as a band announcer and also, like you said, with Eric Ritchie. How'd that come about?
Well, the band announcer stuff, I was already going to be doing some broadcasting, and a friend of mine from high school, Jason Papenchak, said, hey, they were just talking at the band. They need an announcer. Dr. Mikulski needs an announcer. If you're going to be there, you might as well come do that. So they said, Dr. Mikulski wants to see us. So I went and saw if anyone was here back when Dr. Mikulski was in charge of the band. They were just phenomenal, and I met with him, and he immediately gave me the job. So that's how I got to be both on the air and announcing for the band.
You went out and graduated sort of major way after 5 good years, both working at WCUC and WCCB, and you were involved in just about everything, right?
Yeah, we did. Back then, of course, the communication department was really something, and as a freshman, I was shocked that I had so many opportunities because there was a lot of competition. But I got to do some football that year, basketball that year, and then we also got to write for the Clarion Call do things like that. So, that first part, it was just it was a really unique experience.
And then, of course, you graduate and go out, make your way for a couple years or so, and then you come back. Explain just the thought process in coming back, getting your education degree.
Well, I'd started taking a few classes toward education. My dad always told me, he said, "You'll never make money in radio." He was right.
It's funny how dads are always right.
And so I had started taking some classes in education. I thought, you know what, that's something I think I'd really like to do. And I came back, I called one day, I was down in Pittsburgh actually putting glass in for a company and working at a station at night. And they said, yeah, come on back up, we'll get you going. So I came back and finished my education degree, and the rest is history from there, I guess.
Well, and you get to do both. You get to teach English and really impact kids' lives by trying to get them to speak and write the language the way it's supposed to be, and do what you really love, which is broadcasting.
Yeah, well, we try, and actually a couple of my former students are here tonight, and I won't have them stand up, but I was surprised when they showed up. But they get a little choked up here. So. I always do that. They know that.
Yeah, that's okay. Now, we're going to turn this...
well, real quick, when they showed up, though, I was really surprised, and I'm really happy that they're here, well, with everyone else.
Okay. Yep. Did you want to have them stand or
anything? No.
Okay. Okay, so just to liven it up a little bit, so, and we talked about this, favorite team or favorite, but you talked about favorite trip. Tell us about the favorite trip to Northern Iowa.
Well, I had to adjust my story because I did get a little bit of it wrong. Dave Cadis and I were talking here this last couple weeks, but the majority of the story is still the same. And years ago, in '91, I believe it was, we went out to the University of Northern Iowa, and my broadcast partner at the time was Richie Somerville. His dad actually almost became president here at Clarion. And so we go out, and of course, we don't fly. So Northern Iowa was quite a ways. What was that, like 2 days out there or something? It seemed like it. It was 20-some hours.
If you ever traveled with football and wrestling, on the football trips, you eat every 2 hours. On the wrestling trips, you never eat.
Well, so we're heading out there, and we stop at Notre Dame. They had an indoor practice facility, and we were going to get used to. We hadn't played on turf a whole lot. And so we were practicing out there. We got to see Lou Holtz and all those guys of them practice. So we're inside the indoor facility, and our kicker at the time had left us and come back to us, and he was booting these field goals. I mean, just booting these field goals. And then he started. He says, I never miss on turf. I never miss. This is my thing. We're going to be good. So we get out to the University of Northern Iowa, and lo and behold, Northern Iowa scores first. And I'm thinking, well, here we go. Well, lo and behold, we come down the field, and there was a pass to our tight end, I believe, at the time, Tim Brown. He goes down the field, scores a touchdown. It's now 7-6. And I'm thinking, game on, boys. So we had Clarion, Iowa was there, too. There's a town, Clarion, Iowa, and they're all there cheering. They're going crazy. Our kicker walks out onto the field, who never misses on turf, kicks the extra point. Well, it went wide left, I believe, right, Mr. Cadis? Real wide left. It was one of those ones that Bob Euchre, you hear him say, it's just a little outside, and it was a little outside. So we get back on the bus to go home. We end up losing. They scored 60-some points, and we had 6. And the kicker's mouth is still going, and we're on the offensive bus, and he's going, and he was talking about all kinds of stuff. Just wouldn't shut up. Finally, one of the guys in the back of the bus stands up and goes, hey, shut up. And he goes, I'm not shutting up. I'll come back there and kick your butt. And he goes, come on back and kick it. It'll go wide left, too. And the kicker sat down very quietly, and the rest of the way home, it was okay. So that was fun, though. That was a neat trip.
Did you have a favorite victory? Like when we talked to Alfonso about that 4th down against IUP and breaking the game open. Did you have a favorite?
Yeah, he stole that one from me. That was a big one. And, when Alfonso played, boy, that year, and you're right, too, you guys should have been in the playoffs. I know Joe Ludnowski and I talked about that years ago, and we beat Edinburgh up at Edinburgh, same record, and they go to the playoffs and we don't. And I know they tried to say strength of schedule and stuff, but boy, that was a great team. And the teams that Reggie Wells was on, I remember Cadis one time, we were doing a game, and his exact words, he says, Mike, he said, those guys look like they're on roller skates that are trying to block Reggie. And it was true, because Reggie he was just so powerful and so good, and you knew he was destined for greatness too. He was just one of those guys. And then, we came real close. I know my very first year in 1987, we were at Westminster, and I think if we won, we had a shot at maybe making the playoffs, and Ron Urbanski, who was a great tight end for us, ended up dropping a 2-point conversion right at the end of the game, and it kind of ended our thing. But what a great year that was too with those guys. So there's so many.
Or a special player?
Oh, there's just too many. I mean, Fonz is right up there. And you want to talk, when he first came, you talked about size, and I'm not picking on you, kind of. No, when he said we're going to move him to running back, I said he's going to die. And let me tell you what, he really was something, really was so much fun to watch. And we've had so many guys come through. Boy, it's hard to pick so many. And we've even had local guys that have made great contributions to the team.
Now, along with this, you've had this other journey, this journey in high school. Mm-hmm. And talk a little bit about, you started with Bill Hurst, you're with EYT now, and it's different, but you've affected the lives so positively of all the high school athletes in the area. How rewarding is that? And talk about that journey.
Well, and I think that's what it's all about. You don't do this to get the awards. You don't do this to get those types of accolades. You do it because you love it and you want to help the kids out, whether it's in the high school or at the college level. And at the high school level, the one thing you want to do is get those kids the recognition they deserve. And I'd have to thank Bill Hurst at the beginning, for giving all of us a chance. Bob Dunkel and Pat Kale and Ron Smith and, bless Ron Smith's soul. He's not with us anymore, but all of those guys. And you too, Rich, in the very beginning for, sticking up for me, especially when I came back to the air and helping me get back in on the air. And, doing those things, it's just nice, and we always try to do what we can to get, like I said, get those kids the recognition they deserve, try to help them get to where they want to be, and hopefully we've been able to do that over the years.
And of course now with Jake.
And now with Jake Bauer, we're on the EYT Media Network, and I can't thank him enough either. He allows us to do a lot. Sometimes I'm sure he probably looks at us and goes, really? But it's worked out really, really well. And the video's taken over everything. I was always just a radio guy, and that's where my heart still lies. But when it comes to the streaming and the video, it's just amazing now because people all over the country can see grandkids and nieces and nephews play, and it's amazing. And I know Chris Rossetti's here too with his website as well, and he would attest. You hear from people all over the country. And it's amazing what that has done. And COVID really pushed a lot of that stuff, but I never, ever thought it would ever happen. I was the last person to jump ship when we left the radio station, and I always had my doubts, but I certainly don't have those anymore because it's just, I think it's just nice. It's something very nice for people and families. And if you're not from the area anymore, you could go back and see those teams. And, it's the same thing in college, because now with the streaming, now you can watch Golden Eagle football and not just have to listen or try to find something like that.
You've worked with a lot of partners. You like to go through those?
Well,
but some of them, and I appreciate that, and I always enjoyed working with you, but I think of, we haven't talked about Joe Ludnowski.
Yep.
and the contributions, not only when he was here, but then went up to Oil City, and like you said, Dave and Bob and Pat Kale.
So many people, Rich, and you don't get to this point without people like that around you. And I can't thank enough all of those people because they certainly have made me the person I am, the broadcaster I am. I've learned so much from each of them. You know, working with, in college with Richie and some of those guys. I worked with Mike Miller, who became the offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals, and Mike, very knowledgeable about football. And then working with Dave Kadis before he became the athletic director, and then Joe Lednuski came in, and both of those guys go about color a little bit differently, but I learned a lot. And Joe is one of those guys that, I'll tell you what, he can pick apart a game, and I learned so much from him when it came to that, because I only see certain things that I'm looking at. And even today, having Dave back with me for high school games and things, it's just amazing. And working with Pat and Bob and those guys over the years, it's just like, you almost become like a great big family. You really, really do.
Well, it's fun to tell the story, and you can tell it in a lot of different ways, but broadcast partners working together, when you're listening to them, they really do tell a story. And I think that's what that's your bread and butter. You put all of your partners, you've always put them right in that spot, the sweet spot where they can really get down to the nitty gritty.
Well, and they always have. And I always say, too, a lot of times they've made me look good, too. And they're so talented, and I've been very, very lucky. Some people aren't that lucky, but I certainly consider myself one of those guys that have had the ability, or have had the opportunity to work with these people that care as much as I do, and I think that's important. That when you put a product out there, you want it to be the very, very best it can be, and that's everybody that I've worked with. And a couple guys, too, I forgot sitting at the table there that work with us at EYT. They're young guys, and they work their butts off. They're 19, 20 years old, and you know, they could be out having fun with friends, but they're there every week. You know, Brett and Nico over there, just tremendous people to work with. Yep, you can clap. They're good guys.
Some final thank yous or recognitions you want?
Oh, for my family. They've always been there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, this is again where I get choked up.
And that's okay. You're allowed to, but...
Well, and my grandmother, she always was on my butt. She heard me outside and throwing a ball off a roof, and I used to imitate Lanny Fratteri. I was a high school or elementary school kid, and she said, "You'd be really good at that. You need to do that." And she kept encouraging me. And then Mom bought me a Mr. Microphone in the 70s. I think she regrets that. But for Mom and Dad and for my whole family, my sister, my aunt and uncle are here, my daughter, my girlfriend Sandy, all you guys from CP, can't thank you enough for being here. Joe coming, that table sitting there, great friends of mine, Keith and Lisa, and all of you. I just don't hope, I don't want to miss anybody, but it takes everybody to, you know, to allow you to do what you do. So, and it's all those people.
Mike, congratulations. I present to you Hall of Famer Mike Kalinowski.